Happy Friday, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the AIME Women's Mortgage Network's Growth Series. This series is here for you to educate, inspire, and share your progress as we lift each other up to new levels. On today's show, we have Grant Botma. He is the founder and broker owner of Stewardship Mortgage in Arizona, and the author of The Problem Isn't Their Paycheck: How to Attract Top Talent and Build a Thriving Company Culture. All right, 2020 has certainly been a year of growth and adaptation. And during these times, we need to make sure that our teams and their well-being is taken care of, because it is vital to the success and the customer experience. So we are going to discuss how to make sure that our team members are seen, heard, and engaged, and how this drives results. Okay, Grant, starting with the onboarding and the new hire experience, how do you ensure that we are introducing and integrating our new team members so they are personally bonded to our company and our mission, ultimately creating a North Star where everyone is pursuing something together to make a bigger impact?
That's a great question, and it actually requires us to do something different than our initial knee-jerk reaction, especially us in the mortgage industry right now who are really struggling for people. We're overwhelmed. And one of our goals and our hopes is that, hey, they would hurry up, get onboarded, get good at this mortgage thing so that we can serve more customers, because we're drowning, right? But you have to go against that. You cannot focus in too much on training and onboarding in that way. You must focus, especially in the first week, especially within the first few weeks, on social engagement. I know it sounds weird to say, hey, look, I'm going to focus on social engagement instead of getting them onboarded to technology or processes or systems. But if they get socially engaged with the people that they're working with, they'll see how that mission is lived out, as you mentioned. But more importantly, they'll get relationally connected, and they'll have a sense of social responsibility to get onboarded quicker and to make work happen at a higher level. Social engagement's unbelievably important in the onboarding process.
So, Grant, tell us a few ways that we can do that. Okay, so let's go backwards. You know, last week's episode, we actually had Casey Cunningham and Evan Wade speaking about finding that right person, and everyone says the same thing. It starts with having the right attitude, right? Getting that person that you think fits into your culture, and the right person that we can train. So now we've established that we have that right person. Tell me what that first week looks like. You know, what should we be doing before we put them into that training program so that they learn the actual duties and structure of the position?
Yeah, you're right. You want to hire with character over competency, which is super important, but you never really know how is the character of this person going to play out. And at the same time, they don't really know exactly how it's going to play out for them as an employee. So they're struggling with understanding, like, how's this going to work out? There's going to be some legitimate fear when they first start. So you want to remove as much of that fear by having some of this social engagement. It can be as simple as, hey, look, we're going to do a potluck and everybody's going to bring their favorite dish, and we're going to enjoy a meal together, break bread together. It could be an intentional outing where you go bowling or do laser tag or something like that. But really, it starts with the leader communicating to not only the new employee, but to the other team members, hey, I'm okay with social engagement right now. That means if you're in the midst of some side-by-side training where you're walking people through something, I'm okay if you're not actually doing training and you're just having a conversation, getting to know each other. I'm okay with some laughing. I'm okay with some joking. I'm okay with some relationships happening. And here's why this is important, Laura. Study after study after study has proven over many, many years that if you want a team to perform at extremely high levels, if you want the longevity, if you want this long tail approach of a thriving team, you need a team that's socially engaged and feels connected. And that's got to start from the beginning. Otherwise, they're jumping in with fear, wondering, oh man, am I going to be any good at this job? Are the people here going to like me? How's this really going to work out? Jump in with social engagement by having some of those intentional things happening as a leader.
And I love that. And you said, I'm thinking of something in your book where you reference about, look at these companies that say, put your cell phones away, don't have your cell phone out. But yet there's people relying on this to find out if there's something going on at their kid's school, or, they're waiting for something to happen. And we're creating this culture again of hiding or sneaking into a bathroom to make a phone call, right, of something. So you are correct that is very old school thinking, right? Years ago thinking of, oh, people shouldn't be, let's call it the water cooler, right? The old, people shouldn't be congregating, having a conversation about the football game from last night. But yet those people are bonding, and a certain amount of time needs to be spent on that, because like you said, they're more invested, right? To make sure that they're doing a great job for the team. Right? It's part of it. It's like a sports team, if you think about it, right?
Oh, yeah. And it's more than that. Look, as a manager, as a business owner, as a leader, I don't want to spend my time keeping people accountable on how they're working and when they're working. The people that I hire are big girls and big boys. That they can do that on their own. I don't want to spend my time telling them when to work and when not to work. I want a team of self-directed people who pursue this mission, who try to love people well through this mortgage the best that they can. And if I'm spending my time telling them when to work and when not to work, that's wasting my time in moving the business forward and how I need to. I'm unable to work on things that are most important. But here's a really cool thing. If you start onboarding with social engagement, and all of a sudden you have people that work with each other that actually like one another, and they maybe even call themselves friends, and maybe they start hanging out outside of their work environment, guess what? They police themselves on when to work and when not to work, because they don't want to disappoint their coworker. They don't want to disappoint their friend. They know that if they're slacking, then everyone else around them is going to see them slacking. They'll stick out like a sore thumb, especially if everyone is on mission together as a team, as you mentioned.
Love it. Love it. Okay. So let's also, all right. So we do our social engagement. We're also, before we skip off of that, how do we do some of those things with COVID, within a remote world, with working off Zooms or Teams or whatever we're utilizing internally? What are some tips and some things that we could do in the remote world?
Yeah, so some things that I've done with my team are continuing to break bread together. You can still have a Slack or a Teams or a Zoom meeting, but then you pay for the food and have it delivered to everybody, right? And you're just eating a meal together. Make it easy for them. You can have fun contests remotely by doing, okay, everybody share their favorite gift that best explains who they are as a person. And then, you get these funny GIF threads going and it explains who people are. You do different contests in Slack or in Teams with like trivia or other things, but that involves getting to know other people. Like, hey, did you know that this employee did? Which one of these is true? A, B, C, or D? And you put some funny things in, right? But creating some of that intentional social engagement that allows these new employees to get to know other people is a really big deal.
That's a lot of fun. And if you think about that, right? If you're new at a company, like you said, you walk into a new company and your guard is up, right? You're trying to fit in. You're trying to put your best foot forward. You're not sure how people are going to perceive you or judge you or whatever. So instantly, if you're finding out that this person also loves, their favorite movie is this, or they love to do this as their hobby, and there's that connection, well, right there, you're like, oh, I can speak to Grant about this because we have this in common. So yeah. I love that. That's great. All right. You mentioned it a little bit about policing each other, kind of holding each other accountable. And you're right. In this day and age, I mean, nobody wants to be micromanaged. No one needs to spend their time, babysitting anyone. You're correct. We're all hiring big boys and girls that we know how to get things done. So how do we develop that self-directed mentality?
It starts with leaning into a absolutely motivating piece that every person really wants, and that is autonomy. People want freedom. So you have to give them that freedom. If you want a self-directed team, if you want people to have that ownership mentality, you must start by giving them the opportunity to act on that. Give them freedom. Don't micromanage them. And some little examples and things that I do here at my office is I don't care if they're watching Netflix while they work. My employees can literally come and go as they please. My team has unlimited vacation time. Like, those are big pieces of freedom that I give that most people like scoff at, like, whoa, you do what? And I'm not saying that you have to do that, but me as a leader, as a manager, as a business owner, I put myself in the shoes of my team and I ask myself, what are things that I do here within my workplace culture that make my teammates, that make my employees feel enslaved? And what can I do to remove any of those conscious or subconscious shackles that give them freedom? And when they have the freedom, especially if you hire high character people, that's when they really start to thrive. That's when they start doing work that might be better than you ever anticipated. Look, I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't remember the last time I originated a loan, and I thought I was darn good at it when I started the company. I really thought I was amazing at this. But right now, I have a team of originators that's way better than I ever was.
Isn't that awesome? Isn't that a beautiful thing?
Oh my gosh, it's one of them. I have so much pride in it. I have so much pride in how great they are at their job. They're literally some of the top performers in the country. Scotsman Guide top 100 people. And I absolutely love that they're better at it than me. But they never would have gotten there if I was micromanaging them and making them do things the exact same way I wanted to do it, or didn't give them the freedom to be self-directed to pursue this big mission that we have to love people through mortgages the way that they would do it.
So can I ask you a question along this line? And Grant, everything you're saying is just, it's magical. It's like you're singing a symphony at the moment, right? So I want to ask your honest opinion. Why do you think people have so much fear over the fact of, oh, well, they have to work from this moment to this moment, and they can only have a break from this moment to this moment, and we have to check up on them all the time? And what do you think that's based on? Where does that even come from?
Well, if you've gotten to a place where you are leading people, or you have a business of your own, you're a top tier entrepreneur, you've likely gotten there because of grit, hard work, and control. You've controlled the environment. You grabbed the bull by the horns from situations, and you've made things happen. You've experienced success by doing that. The problem is you cannot treat people the same way, employees the same way. Otherwise, you create an environment where you're going to be working more for yourself as a manager, business owner, or leader. Think about it. If all I'm doing is making sure that people do all these little details correctly, micromanaging them, not giving them freedom, not allowing them and teaching them and creating an environment where they can be self-directed, I'm creating work for myself to make sure they're doing the things that they need. That means my team is going to be waiting on cues from me to do things, rather than giving them the freedom to be like, hey, there's a need, go fill it. Hey, we have a culture and a mission of pursuing this purpose of doing loans with excellence. Here's the way you do it. Go for it. You know?
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Okay. So we have our new team members. We've boarded them. They are connected. They are bonded. So now let's go into, from a leader, from a managerial standpoint, what do we need to do as we're giving feedback? As we're checking on their progress and communicating that back and being a listener? So tell us what we need to do at that stage.
Yeah, once you have employees, especially if you've onboarded them, they've got great character because you hired them right. One of the biggest issues that we have is retention. Like, how do we keep them around? And we all know that it hurts like crazy when somebody leaves our business, especially if they're really good, because now everybody's got to pick up the slack. It adds additional stress to your team, and then you got to go find someone else. This is really expensive. So you've got to do anything and everything that you can to keep your employees. And you mentioned the word listenary. I believe that you don't just need to be a visionary to be a business owner or a great leader. You need to be a listenary, meaning you have to actively listen. You have to actively pursue listening with your team. If you want to keep employees around, if you want your employees to be self-directed, give feedback, and be a part of the growth that you want to take your company in, you must pursue them. You must let them know that you care. And that starts by actively listening to them. Be a person who's listening, because everybody wants to be heard.
Of course. Of course. So what are some of those intentional questions, Grant? I know you have, and also I want you to dive into making the time to do it.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing is that, okay, let's take this. I'm listening to this right now and I'm like, wow, I'm fired up. I agree with all of this. I want to go do it.
Yeah.
And you know what? Next week, I start doing it. And then the end of the month comes. And then all of a sudden, this family is, something went wrong on the loan and I got to jump in and, I got to take care of the realtor partner. And we all know what happens in our business. So how do we ask those intentional questions and how do we make sure that we're consistent in what we're doing to make sure that we continue to do this?
Yeah. So another motivating thing to the human brain is not just freedom, and autonomy, but also affirmation. People want to know if they're doing it right. And you can give high fives, attaboys, attagirls so long, but if they're not genuine, if it's not really connected to something that they did, well, guess what? It's going to get lost on them. And eventually they'll lose trust in your voice because you're not genuine in the affirmations that you're giving. So you have to intentionally create systems and processes where you're listening, receiving data about the work that your team is doing so that you can give a real affirmation. So you need to have, yes, key performance indicators of data about your company so you know how sales and different things are going, but also you need to have things in place where you can affirm an employee on a great job that they've done. So an example would be collecting reviews from customers. And when you see a review come in as a manager or leader, taking that review, going to the team member and saying, man, you did a great job right here. Thank you so much for meeting our mission in this way. That's awesome. That means that you were listening. You have to make sure
you're back. We lost you for a moment there, Grant, but you're good. You left off on you were listening when you saw the great review.
Yeah, so if you saw that great review, you're listening, which is good, but you also have to take the time to make that affirmation happen. So something that I do is I schedule in my week time where I am going to affirm my team. Wow. Now, this is going to be time where I might just be walking around giving high fives and thanking them and doing different things. But I'm also taking data that I was listening to the week prior and then confronting these folks and letting them know, like, you did a great job here, did a great job here, you did a great job here. There are times where there's negative affirmations.
Right.
There are times where I have to course correct. And I'm going to do that as I'm listening as well. So that's one way that's really important. That's intentional. Scheduling that time once a week to make sure you're going out and you're affirming your team based on the data that you were listening to before. But here's another opportunity to schedule listening. And I call this the employer review, not the employee review, but the employer review. Look, the quarterly and annual employee review, people don't like it.
No.
It feels terrible. Why are we waiting 90 days to tell them, something that they need to change or they need to fix? I have a system in place where if I see something that's wrong or something that needs to get fixed, I tell them right away. Again, we're wired for affirmation and people want to know that. But every 90 days, my employees know that they get to review me as an employer. They get to review our company, where I pursue them and I ask them very intentional questions that give them the opportunity to communicate to me, where I'm actively listening. Again, this is about them reviewing me, not me talking to them.
So what are a few, tell me some of those intentional questions.
I mean, you can go take them out to lunch or a smoothie or coffee and you ask questions like, hey, how do you feel about your job? How's your spouse feel about your job? How are your kids feeling about your job? How do you feel about your workload? What do you feel like you're good at in your job? Where do you feel like you're not so good in your job? Are there any resources or tools or technology that you've seen that maybe you'd like to have to make you better at your job? Are there any technology pieces that are really annoying you right now? How are your relationships with people in the office? Do you have somebody that you really appreciate? And why do you really appreciate them? Hey, is there somebody in the office that's maybe a little bit annoying to you right now? And why are they annoying? How am I doing as a boss? Is there something that I do that you really like that I got to keep doing? Is there something that you wish that I changed in the way that I'm doing? Hey, we have this mission as a company, and it's to love people through the mortgages. Are we doing well at that? Or is there something that you think we could do that would do better? These types of questions, asking that stuff, man, I've gotten some of my best ideas for the company and some of the best things that we've done moving forward as a company to get growth from these types of meetings.
That's awesome. But there's a but in there. I would assume the most important thing out of all of that is you actually taking action on what you hear, right?
Yep.
So speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, so there's two things with this. One, it's going to take time for your team to trust you in that, especially if they've come from traditional work environments where this doesn't happen. They're going to wonder like, whoa, is what I'm being said or what I say going to be held against me? How long is it? It sometimes takes up to a year, 2 years for employees to really start trusting me and get comfortable in these quarterly conversations. But it's a rhythm, and they know that I'm going to pursue them, and they know that they're going to get the opportunity to talk to me. So when they do give me some feedback of something that I can change and change immediately, I'm taking notes. Like, I ask the question and then I got a pen and paper. Like, I'm ready. Like, go ahead. Tell me how I can change. You got it. I'm going to write it down. And if there's something I can do about it right away, I will. And if I can't do anything about it right away, I create a plan to implement it. And then I tell them that plan that's going to be implemented. That way they know it's not just fluff.
Yeah.
I genuinely matters. Here's the big thing. Your team, your employees need to know that you care about them.
Of course.
The people that were able to say yes to this question, my boss, my manager, my business owner cares about me, perform at higher levels than people that answered no to that question. So do you want a high performing team? Make sure your team knows that you genuinely care about them. And these employer reviews are a part of that process.
Absolutely. And we're going to get to that 12.3% because I want to close with that. But when we spoke last week, you mentioned something that you're doing, especially during COVID and all this crazy volume and all of that, where you actually send little notes or things to the families of your teams. Can you speak about that? Because I absolutely just love that. And I want everyone to hear what you're doing.
Yeah, I think one of the worst things that we can do is create an environment where our employees are at work and then they go home and their kids, their spouse, their whoever is supporting around them, their friends start to loathe that job. I want a spouse, I want kids, I want friends who think that the job that this employee has is the coolest thing in the world, so that when life gets tough or when there is high stress environments, that those people in that employee's life are pushing them to say, get in there, man, do it, work hard, you got this, go for it. Because when they have support at home, they have support outside of the office, again, it's going to make things happen better. So also, combining the fact that I want to let them know I genuinely care about them, I do things and have done things unique during this kind of stay home period. Here's a few examples of what we did. One, we started out with some care packages. Am I here? Can you hear?
You're back.
Okay.
Care packages.
Care packages.
Care packages.
Yeah. So we put together some stuff. My wife, my kids, and I. We went to the store, got a whole bunch of toilet paper. We got some board games. We got some clothes. Just some food. Just because people didn't know what to do, and so we delivered this stuff to people's door, and we kind of put signs and things in their front yard with affirming words to let them know they're awesome. We love you, we care for you, stuff like that. So we delivered to their homes. Then I delivered a note. If I knew that employee was working really hard at home, overcoming adversity, especially with all this uncertainty, I sent a note not to that employee, but a note to that employee's spouse or kids to say, hey, guess what? Your husband or wife, your mom or dad, they're awesome. And here's why they're awesome. They're doing these great things, and gave great examples of why the person that's in that house, that employee of mine, is a superhero. So then they started thinking positive thoughts about me, or they started thinking about positive thoughts about that employment. We knew that, hey, look, these kids were probably struggling getting cooped up in the house all day. So I sent bounce houses to people's backyards to stay there for several weeks so that, one, the kids could have some fun, but it gave the kids something to do while the employees were trying to figure out working from home, right? I made sure that they had all the technology and the resources they need to work from home. Well, again, I was asking questions intentionally. How's your work desk? Do you need a different one? What about your chair? What one are you using? Want me to have one sent to you? Stuff like that was being done. I even created an environment where they could relax together as a family. I got these projectors, and we live in Arizona, and the weather was great during that time. And I'm like, hey, look, here's a projector, connect it to your iPhone and start watching movies in the backyard together as a family, just to sit and relax, in the evenings. Stuff like that, where I'm genuinely thinking about their needs and what would be important to them, and working to do my best to pursue those needs and care for them. Why? Because then they'll in turn start looking for needs of our customers.
Of course.
And pursuing them and filling them in unique ways.
Well, that's that mission. All of a sudden, it's the North Star, right, that they're following. And Grant, I mean, obviously, everything you're saying is spot on, and I commend you for going out there and changing the mindset. And you started the very first question. You said, we're in this amount of volume, overwhelming amount of volume, and all we keep thinking is, you have to get on there immediately, and we have to get you processing loans or being in an LOA or whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, if we take care of these team members and we bring them into our family to take care of them, they in turn will take care of our own families, and of course our clients and our referral partners that we work with. So everything you're saying, it makes such absolute sense, and I commend you. I cannot even tell you how proud I am of what you're doing and the message you're sharing, because we all want to provide this, but sometimes you need to be reminded. Sometimes you need to hear, this is what others are doing, to be able to learn from, and you have done that. So now I just have to have you explain the 12.3%. So please explain that, and then let's wrap it up with that last piece of advice of where to start. Where do we start in this mission of building this incredible culture for our teams?
Yeah, so there was a study that was done by Deloitte, who is one of probably the best data companies, I'd say, in the world. And they did an exhaustive study for all kinds of different companies, from very small entrepreneurial, say in finance or not in finance, to very large corporations. And they recognized that there were some genuine top performers based on statistics. And as they were studying the people that were top performers versus the people who were not top performers, they saw that basically only 1 in 10 employees, about 12.3% of employees, are giving their absolute best at work. The rest of the employees, 9 out of every 10 essentially, are not. They're trying to find ways to skirt by and skip out on things. Well, the ones that were pursuing things awesome, the ones that were doing really well, had this one thing in common, and that is they believed they were doing work that made a difference in other people's lives. They believed that they were on a mission and that the things that they did actually mattered. They weren't just task completionists. They weren't just loan originators or assistants. They were helping people achieve, say in our world, the American dream by getting a home loan. They were helping their coworkers and their friends earn a better income so they could care for their families. They took the tasks and the things that they were doing and took them a level deeper to make a real impact on a real life somewhere. So if you're saying, man, hey, well, what should we do? Where do we start? Look, here's the thing, Laura. All of us, probably somewhere in our heart, if we're healthy human beings, do genuinely care about our team. All of us do want to have thriving employees. And all of us want to give our team a mission, a sense of purpose, let them know that the work they're doing really does matter. But it's not enough to just have these great intentions. Awesome and amazing and great intentions require very intentional actions. So where do we start? Think about the intentional actions that you need to start adding to your schedule to make sure that these great intentions come to life. It could be, hey, I'm just going to take an hour out of my week and intentionally affirm some people. Hey, it could be I'm going to create a system or start listening and gathering some data for how my team is doing so that I can intentionally affirm them. It could be that you are going to start scheduling these quarterly employer reviews where you just start asking them questions and letting them review you as a manager, business owner, or leader. Very good intentions require intentional actions. And I think that's where you start.
Love it. Absolutely. Grant, this was awesome. It was incredible. Thank you so much for all of your insights. It was truly inspirational. So thank you so much for joining us. All right, everyone. We wish you a fabulous rest of your day, a great weekend. And next week, we have Ms. Christine Beckwith, who is going to discuss how to find and develop the strengths you already have, finding your confidence and learning on how to build yourself up. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next week.